Let's begin by taking a look at the index.html file. I'm going to go ahead and drag it over to the editor. Sometimes if you open up a .html file by double-clicking it, it will open up in a browser instead of your editor. So I'm going to scroll down so you can see the whole code here. There's really not a whole lot to it. Again, it's all HTML. So let's go ahead and walk through this code and align it with what we saw in the browser. Now I'm going to assume that you have some familiarity with HTML, and I'm not going to go into each one of the elements in detail, but I do want to take enough time that we know exactly what we're looking at in the code and how it lines up with what we see in the browser. So we begin by establishing our doc type as HTML. We open our HTML page with the HTML tag, and then in our head, we set the title, Welcome to Amazing, and then Amazing Inc. And we also include our style sheet here in styles/style.css. We end our head tag and then begin our body tag here. Now this is where all the content is, and it's indented so you can see what's a part of what. So we begin with a div called body, we have a div called header, and that div ends right here. So this is all the header. It includes our logo, it includes the title that you see, and it includes the menu here with links to home, products, about, and contact. After our header, we have some content. We begin with a wrapper div called content outer, and then we start our left column here. And this is where we have our featured sticks. Each featured stick is in a div called product. Now, as I'm describing these divs, I say that they're called and then the name of the class occasionally, because oftentimes we'll actually identify a div by the class. An ID is a common attribute to use for an identifier as well. So in this left column, we have our title, and then we have our two product divs. Within each product div, we have the image, we have the price, we have the title of the product, and then we have an add to cart button. See that duplicated here. And then our left column is ended. So here's the end of it. And then we begin our content. I'm going to scroll down so we can see the rest of the page here. So here's our content. We begin with an image, and again, this is the home page where we see that lizard graphic on the right. So this is just floating to the right. Next we have our heading, and then we have our content in paragraphs here. At the end of our content, we have a list of additional places that the user could go. This is in an unordered HTML list, and there's just links to the products, about, and contact page here. Here's the end of our content div that lines up with right there. And then we have a div with a class of clear. This is a common convention to allow for the proper positioning of multi-column layouts so that the footer appears below both of the columns, regardless of the length of each column. And then we have the end of our outer content div. If we scrolled up here, this is the content outer div here. I'm going to scroll back down. And then finally we have our footer. It's just a div, and inside it has an HTML entity for the copyright symbol, which is and copy, and then a semicolon, 2011, Amazing Inc. And then that's the end of our footer. We have an end of a div here. If we scroll up to the top, that's the div class body, and then we should expect the ending body tag after that. And that's right there. And then finally we have our ending HTML tag. So the HTML here is pretty simple and straightforward. Now let's compare this to another one of our static HTML pages. I'm going to go back to our example folder here, and we just opened up index. Let's go ahead and open up about. I'm going to drag this over to the editor and open it here. And now if we look at the structure of this code, we'll see that a lot of it is identical to our index.html file. Our header is the same except for the title right here. That's the only difference, but the name of the company is the same, and we're including the same CSS file. This whole header section is identical, where we have the logo, the title, and the menu. And if we continue to look down, this whole left column is identical, where we're showing our featured sticks. Now that makes sense. We're going to want to show the same featured sticks on every page. And the only real changes begin right here in the content div. If I scroll down here, you'll see it's all within this section right here where we have the text and the image here. Our content outer div ends the same way, and then our footer is identical. So there's a lot of duplication here. And if we looked at our contact page or our products page, we'd see the same thing happening. Now at this point, I'm guessing your wheels are turning a bit about how we can improve this using scripting. One of the big benefits of using code in our applications is that we can reduce duplication. So my guess is you're looking at these two files and thinking, well, there's a whole lot of code that's identical between these. Why don't we actually store that code in a variable or something and use it in both places? So that way we have all of that code in one place if we need to adjust it in some way. Whereas if we have the same code in every file, the same header, the same sidebar, and the same footer, then if we want to change an aspect of any of that, we have to change it in multiple files. That's one aspect of a CMS, is reducing this repetition by using something called templates or a theming engine.